Welcome back to another episode of the Office Hours Podcast with Professor Brad Perkins. Today in the studio, we have a couple of guys that are going to talk about what it means to be in engineering sales, why engineering sales is a legitimate career and maybe something that a lot of students don't hear about. Most people kind of stumble into. I know as when I was a consulting engineer, I would call in, that's all I did. Call when I needed solutions here. As a systems designer, I don't design impellers, right? I pick a pump. I don't design a refrigeration cycle. I specify one and I find one and I tell someone else to buy one. So system engineering is the art of picking out components, probably from vastly different vendors, and making them all work together in a building for a unique project one time. So to do that, you need some help. It's not possible to know everything about every product that's made out there. And you need experts to come and walk you through that process. So that is the role of engineering sales. And dare I say it, it's why, personal opinion, the more technical the person that you're talking to for sales is, the better they'll be able to relate to the engineers. So with that in mind, I've got a couple guys here from mechanical sales. Chad, you want to go first? Just introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah. Chad Raymer with mechanical sales out of our Des Moines, Iowa office. Been with the company since 2014. So, do you want to go all the way back to college? Or?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How'd you get started, the whole thing?
Yeah, I graduated from Iowa State in mechanical engineering in December of 2003. Actually, we talked prior to the podcast how people have different paths to get here. I actually thought I wanted to design cars when I was here.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. That's why you go.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, I don't know what I want to do. Cars are cool.
Yep.
I want to design cars.
Yep. And then I quickly realized that wasn't it wasn't a great time in the economy. I think at that point, and they weren't really hiring, and
Yeah.
So I was going to take Maxwell's classes.
Oh, Dr. Maxwell, sure. Okay,
Yep.
so for everyone to understand, Dr. Maxwell was a fixture here at Iowa State for, almost 30 years probably, right?
Yeah.
I took his HVAC design classes in 1996 and 97, and he'd been here a while by that point. But and then when I got my master's degree in 2011, I ended up taking a class from Dr. Maxwell, his class on nuclear engineering, because I just needed one more elective, and I'd operated a nuclear power plant in the Navy, so I'm like, yeah, this seems like an easy class. I'll just take a Nuki class, and Dr. Maxwell was teaching it. So that was, that was 11, that was like 13, 14 years after I had him for HVAC design. It was like a total flashback. But anyway.
Yeah.
So you took Dr. Maxwell's class?
Actually, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
No. So the summer before my senior year, I tried to get an internship as a consulting engineer and wasn't successful with that. So
okay.
I ended up calling an audible. I ended up opting out of Maxwell's classes, and I took vehicle dynamics.
Okay.
So I always joke with people, I use it daily now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes.
So, but yeah, that's kind of how I got through my college career, and then I started my career with Johnson Controls.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Yep.
I think. What year was that at Johnson Controls? What year time frame were you at Johnson Controls?
It'd have been 2004, January of 2004.
Okay. See, I was still at KJWW at the time. I think, is that where I met you first?
No, because I was actually in Omaha.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I thought maybe that might have been. Okay.
Yep. So.
All right. So you're working for a controls contractor or vendor, I should say, not contractor, vendor. Although Johnson does some of its own install.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it's kind of blurs the line between vendor and contractor, really.
Yep.
Okay. So you're working for a controls vendor / contractor, and what?
One of my best contracting customers was actually an Iowa State graduate, and
Okay.
And about 3 years in, became really close with him, and he said, "Hey, you want to become a mechanical contractor?"
Okay.
So I went to work for him and spent about 8 years in the mechanical contracting business.
Who with? Who?
Ray Martin Company was at that point in time.
Okay. I'm not familiar with them.
And that was over in Omaha.
Over in
Omaha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Because I was like, That's odd. There's a mechanical contractor I haven't heard of in Des Moines. No,
Yeah,
it was Omaha.
Yeah, they were over in Omaha. So,
Okay.
yeah, and then 2014 moved back to Iowa and came to work for mechanical sales.
Mechanical sales. All right. All right. Okay, so you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah,
then?
I'm Tim Conrad. I'm both Chad and I are both principals in Iowa, so we're part of the ownership group located in the Des Moines office, Johnson. Kind of my story is a little different. I'm actually a double E major, and I graduated in '05.
Really, you seem surprisingly well adjusted for a double E.
I've been I've been told that before.
I always joke that he's confused.
he's very
Well, in my
confused.
background, I came to college thinking I was going to be a computer engineering student,
Yeah.
and I got into the deep programming, and I needed to be more social, so
Oh,
I decided
okay.
to. So I got a power emphasis, and then went to work in Kansas City for 2 years for
who? I was in Kansas City. For
Burns
a while.
McDonnell. Down
Okay,
there.
yeah. I interviewed with them, and I took a job though at Black and
Black and Beach. Yep,
Yeah, it's like you.
it's the two, right?
It's the two. You
Yep.
start at one. A lot of people move to the other.
Yep. And I actually interviewed with both. Had a job
Yeah.
offer from both.
Yeah,
right.
I
And
did too.
I thought my fit was better with Burns and McDonnell, and it was great. It was a great experience.
Yeah.
My only issue was that when I got out of school and I got into like meetings and stuff like that, I was always behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
they were always forward facing, and I wanted to get into more forward facing.
Yeah.
Good friends with Chad we actually did an internship together at Maytag when we were at Iowa State,
Okay.
like it'd be 03 time frame.
Yep.
So anyway, we were talking, and he recommended I started at Johnson Controls. So I moved back to Des Moines, closer to where my wife is.
Yep.
We were dating at the time, and we decided we wanted to live in Des Moines. And he got me a job at Johnson Controls, and I worked there for 5 years, and then I came to work for mechanical sales. I've been there for coming up on 15 years,
Okay.
kind of finding my way. And so the progression of electrical to controls, that makes sense. So I got into the controls, and now I'm actually designing HVAC systems and helping consulting engineers and kind of doing more of the thermodynamic side of things, which I did take the class in college, but
Wait. Did you take HVAC or thermo or both?
I just took thermo, whatever. I can't
thermo.
remember what number it was, but it was
doesn't
one of
matter.
the.
We know
yeah.
what you mean.
Yep. So anyway, but it's applying everything I learned over the years. We got a lot of physics and chemistry as well through that whole process. So moral of the story, you kind of find your way as you go through.
Well, now that is very true. There's very, very few people that end up doing what they think they were wanted to do when they're a
Exactly.
student, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just such a myriad of different ways that can go. It's funny that you said you thought you wanted to design engines. That was fixed for me in thermodynamics, by the way. So I started out as a traditional mechanical engineer. Here, I came off a Navy submarine, so I went enlisted Navy right out of high school. No college. Went to the Naval Nuclear Power Program. Went through power school and prototype and my first ship and all that stuff, and got sent here to Iowa State on an officer program. And it's like, well, what major? You have to pick your major. And I was like, well, it makes sense to go mechanical. I mean, that seems to relate the most to mechanical engineering. And I was there. So, but long story short, on the military side, at some point I broke a leg and got physically disqualified. So ended my military career, and got it like, oh man, I gotta find a job. It's like find a normal job. And my thermodynamics instructor, he was a great guy, Dr. Dan Bullen, kind of an inspiration to me. Did you guys? He was probably I think he was still here when you guys would have went through. Dr. Dan Bullen.
Name doesn't sound familiar.
Doesn't
to
sound
me.
well. I mean, the ME department's so big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have walked right past him, and if you don't have a class from him, you wouldn't know him.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was a great teacher. He had a nuclear background as well. He had PhDs in both mechanical and nuclear engineering. He worked at Lawrence Livermore National Labs. I mean, the guy was, as far as engineers go, guy was heavy. I mean, he knew a whole lot of crap about a whole lot of crap. And so he was telling me about his experience. Actually, he was telling the whole class about how he knew he didn't want to go into automotive, design. He interviewed at, one of the big three. He goes to one of the big three, and he's on this interview, and he's meeting with one of these engineers during the interview, and the interviewer's like, all right, I need you to just design a car hood spring that connects to this material and this material? How would you go about designing a spring? And the guy he was talking to turns out was the world's foremost expert at car springs. All right, that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there going, I do not want to become an expert at car springs. That's not what he's looking for. So he went into power instead. And I'm like, I agree. I don't want to become like this expert in like one tiny little component.
Yep.
And the funny thing though is when I was at Black and Veatch, I met their engineer. They had a guy there at Black and Veatch, and big, huge engineering firm like a Burns and McDonnell or a Black and Veatch. They might have thousands of engineers in one building, or at least that was the case for me. And there was the one guy I met that was the expert, world's foremost expert, I bet, at pipe hangers. Designing pipe hangers.
He was the guy.
He was the guy.
Yep.
Like he was the guy. I mean, he knew everything about seismic pipe hangers, regular pipe hangers for this pipe, that pipe, the other. He knew everything about pipe hangers. And that's when I really kind of changed my focus in engineering and how kind of HVAC engineering became really interesting to me, because there's so many different choices and systems and everything from, we could be one project's heat pumps, one project's chillers and boilers, or air cooled chillers, or DX systems, and now variable refrigerant volume, and there's so many different ways, because I was like, I like the sound of an industry where I don't just specialize in pipe hangers or car hood springs.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy once you a myriad of paths, right? And you find your way to this industry. I think more often than not, people become just addicted to it. You walk into buildings, you're looking at the roofs, you're like,
oh
"There's a
yeah,
mechanical
yeah,
room,
you
what
are."
thermostats on the wall?"
Well, and
like,
that was a big thing when I got into the John's controls, and I would be watching like movies and stuff and pointing it out to my wife. And
Oh
she'd
yeah,
just
you
get
can't.
annoyed.
It just
So
ruins
it's
so
like,
many
look
movies.
at that thermostat back
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
That zone sensor.
Right?
You know,
Do you
that's a
guys
nice one there.
remember? Do you guys remember the show 24?
Yeah.
With Kiefer
Oh
Sutherland.
yeah.
There was like one season where I felt like they were intentionally screwing with me. It was the season where like somebody's going to poison a city and they were going to like dump stuff into this air handler, and I'm
it's
like,
going to blow all over. Yeah, exactly.
they couldn't find a way to shut down the fan, and I'm like, you're standing next to the breaker.
Yeah, that's right there.
The variable frequency drive is right there. How about you just turn that off? And I mean, it was just killing me. And then the same season, they were going to cause nuclear meltdown by overloading, all these nuclear power plants, hacking them and taking control of them. And I'm like, oh God, you're doing it on purpose. Between going from HVAC to nuclear power, and I'm like,
And all that's going to happen in an hour on that show,
yeah,
right?
yeah, in an hour
watch
on
it,
that
yeah,
show.
so-
I'm like, oh,
Is
you're
this for
killing
real?
me. You're killing me for sure. But yes, you're right. Being an engineer, especially for building systems, ruins a whole lot of movies. It sure does. All right. Well, okay. So both of you, kind of the long way around, going through different. You started in a major, and then you end up doing something else, and then you end up doing something else. All right. Tell me about your job as like at engineering sales, because this is different than what if you talk to our students, most of them would not even think of sales as a career for an engineer. They just wouldn't. And obviously, both of you have your engineering backgrounds. And
Well, and I think part of the reason that is you got to find your way to it is because it's not prevalent where everybody really knows about it. When you come out of engineering school, it's go find a consulting job with billable time, work your way up, maybe work for a large multinational company designing widgets, like you said.
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So,
exactly. Yeah.
sort of, I guess
That seems like the progression.
Well, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like you're not aware. So part of the reason that we want to continue ourselves is to spread the word on it as an option. It's not necessarily for everyone,
Oh no, it's not. That's
And-
for sure.
and from our standpoint, we found our way because we were, we had a competitive side growing up. We played sports. We liked to win, right?
Sure.
You got to get those juices flowing a little bit. We wanted to use our technical side that we learned at engineering school, so we exercise that every day. We call it being a consultant to the consultant.
No, that's absolutely true.
yeah.
That's absolutely true, because as someone that was on the consulting side, you're like, that's how you use to save time. You know, I'm not.
Well, and it's impossible for
Yeah.
a consulting engineer to know everything, especially what new is coming out. And then
yeah.
the market is changing so fast with
Yeah.
new refrigerants and new
Oh.
technologies. So our goal is to educate them on,
my
on
gosh,
what's out there.
this is, you know, it's fascinating to me. If we look at, like, let's just draw a line at the year 2000, you know, and if we look at chill water systems and boiler systems for ever before that, you know, we could look at a system from the 60s and a system from the 90s, and would you notice much of a difference, really? You know, okay, maybe we went from R11 to R22.
Yeah.
You know, still kind of worked the same. You know, but after that, like here, I'm gonna date myself. You guys will probably laugh at this. I think I'm almost certain that it was one of my projects that had the first variable frequency drive.
Yeah.
Centrifugal chiller in the state of Iowa.
Okay.
Right? It was a train, right? Sorry. You know,
We forgive you.
we forget it. Thank you. I appreciate that. But, you know, it was a new thing. I mean, this was like, oh my gosh, this is like super crazy idea, putting a variable frequency drive.
How is this going to work?
Yeah, is this
right?
really going to work? Is this going to last?
Yep.
You know, because back then in the early 2000s, VFDs kind of had this, they break, they overheat. You know, you got to replace them. Are we really wanting to put that on a?
And they're the size of a refrigerator.
Oh yeah.
Capacitor
Oh
banks
gosh,
and everything
yeah.
in 'em,
Yeah. And do we want to put it on a machine that's already several hundreds of thousands? Yeah, you laugh. You know, 1,000-ton machine that's a few $100,000.
Yeah.
yeah. You're like, that's funny. You know. Yeah, the salesmen are like, that's our commission days. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No.
I'm just teasing a little bit.
Well, and a funny story is when I first started about 15 years, well, actually even 20 years ago, just variable frequency drives on fans. They're still turning vanes, and trying to convince some customers that you should do that.
Yes, that you should go.
Yeah, and it's like, well, there's no way this can work right.
Well, especially when, you know, someone, let's see here, in, you know, like in 2000, you know, I wasn't even 30, you know, and you know this in engineering, you're not taken seriously when you're less than 30 and you don't have any gray hair. All right, it's true. Okay, we know it's true. But you know, here I'm trying to convince you, you know, variable frequency drives are a great idea. They're like, come back to me in 20 years. Let me know if they're still available.
Think about the evolution of a centrifugal chiller. You know, you're talking about putting a drive on it, oil lubricated.
Yeah.
At some point, someone said, you know, maybe it'd be a good idea if we just made the shaft float in a magnetic field.
Oh, what a crazy thing, right? I mean, that's just witchcraft right there.
Yes.
I mean, it was hard enough to convince them to put the VFD on it and
take away the breaking points and the maintenance points.
Yes. But now it's like, well. Okay, so in my class on HVAC, when we go over the refrigeration cycle, and we've kind of alluded to some of this, right? The newer refrigerants are not necessarily better with regards to energy efficiency, and in fact, they're definitely not.
Yep.
So the question is, how do we increase energy efficiency if the refrigerants aren't helping any? And all that has to come from drive side. You know, it has to come from things like variable frequency drives and magnetic bearing chillers.
And more material, right?
Yeah,
a lot of times,
bigger,
right? More copper inside air-cooled chillers. That
right.
makes
the
it
amount
bigger.
of the amount of R&D that these manufacturers do at that level. Mixing and matching refrigerants and drives
and pieces,
and compressors, and it's unbelievable. I mean,
well, but this brings us to the challenge of how fast things are changing. You know, and how hard it is to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's now fundamentals are always fundamentals. You know, I mean, you know, with regards to pumps and piping and that type of thing. But you know, the cutting edge equipment is changing rapidly. You know, when I was in consulting, variable refrigerant flow or variable refrigerant volume, wasn't a thing. You know, the magnetic bearing chiller, when it came out, everybody thought it was witchcraft. You know.
Yep.
You know, I don't even remember what year was that when they came out. I remember hearing about this, and who came out with the first one? Was it Carrier?
with what?
The first magnetic bearing chiller where it levitated it.
I was thinking it was
Train, was it?
Well, I was thinking it was Daikin's, but I don't know 100%.
I don't want to. I'm not for sure on that.
Right. I'm so iffy.
They're the
on
first
this.
to master it, though. I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember maybe it was Train that had one, at a the yearly big show on
HR.
Yeah, it seems like they had one, and then you didn't hear about it again. I could be wrong on that.
It could
you
be,
know,
yeah.
but it seems like there was issues, and anyway. So, like with anything, engineers are a cautious lot, and you guys as sales, you're trying to convince them to do new things, and probably a pretty hard sell.
You had mentioned that it's not always more efficient as things change, and you use the example of refrigerant. Like, a lot of these manufacturers on the chiller side are going to the low pressure refrigerant side now. And the size of some of these machines due to
the difference,
the compressor sizes. I mean,
Yeah.
architects have to hate them.
Oh gosh.
I mean, the
They always
mechanical
do.
room-
They always do. Oh, come on, that's always been a thing, though. I mean,
Never enough room for 'em,
there's
right?
never
Yeah.
enough room. I remember. So one 180,000 square foot lab space I'm designing. Is like massive systems. Air handlers had 3 air handlers, each of which were over. The smallest one was 100,000 CFM, and the biggest one was like almost 300,000. It needed like 2,000 tons of chiller, and they're like, how much space do you need? And I tell them, they're like, oh no way. I thought this would work, and I'm like, they gave me a mechanical room, literally the size that you would expect for like a 7-Eleven or something, like a closet.
Yep.
It's like,
Make it work, right?
really?
Yeah.
Really? And they're like, okay, well, let's try this. And he gave me in the basement where all these different wings came together, and the angles to the room were really weird angles, and I'm like, no, most of the mechanical system has like right angles on it. So you can give me all this square footage, but if I can't fit equipment in there, it doesn't do any good.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's always a thing. There has never been a time when architects give you more space.
It's always a battle, right? For the space.
It is always a battle.
It's always aesthetics versus
Yeah.
functionality.
Right.
And,
So
yeah.
this is what I actually teach. This is what I actually teach my students. All right. In the design class. I'm like, so we do as like they're working on it right now. It'd be a schematic level design for a big building. And they have to do heating calcs, cooling calcs, size, air handler, chiller plant, boiler plant. And this is what I teach them literally for a lesson. I'm like, here's why you got to do these preliminary stuff, because you've got to get a rough order of magnitude on the chiller and the boilers and the main equipment, so that you can go to vendors like yourself and you get quotes and you're like, okay, how big is this? How big is this? How big is this? Roughly. I go, then a good way to do this is take whatever space you think you need, double it, tell the architect that's what you need. And then when they cut your space in half, here's what you do. You bitch and moan up a storm, telling them that it's not possible, and then you go and you make it work. I'm like, but don't ever think that whatever
It's all
they gave you-
perception at that point. Then,
because it's a game. We all know it's a game. You know you're going to tell the architect something, they're going to cut it down, so you give them more, and they know you probably lied to them, and they're going to give you less. Right? It's just a process.
The one that really comes to mind right now, other than in terms of the efficiency conversation, is UL has this new code called, I might butcher this, 60355 or something that requires.
I've not heard of it.
It requires manufacturers to size their MOP based on the full load amps of the drive, not the motor. So when we change
It's
from
an extra large
410A
drive,
to R32 or 410A to 454B, the MOP on these units is going up substantially.
Oh, okay.
So now all of a sudden the existing electrical infrastructure is not sized for it. Or
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's kind of an interesting one right now that
Right.
everyone's trying to
Would this
navigate.
be similar to like if on a pump or a pump curve, if I only looked at what the maximum power was and not what the operating power would be? Is it kind of like along those lines?
Kind of like, well, I mean, oftentimes your drive is actually rated for more amperage than your actual motor.
Oh, okay.
Is,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And so,
okay.
so you
usually
know,
create a buffer in there to make sure it fully
Yeah.
can modulate across the board. And
yeah, even though it'll never see that amperage
Mhm.
because the motor's only operated to run it, whatever. 20
so now if you
amps or whatever.
oversize that VFD, they have to rate the actual feed, the electrical feed to the
Ooh,
unit.
I bet that
based
makes
on
people
that.
unhappy.
So
Yeah.
it throws a wrench in and it's kind of circling back as to what we do. We get a set of problems and we help
Yeah.
kind of navigate them. And there's so much more dynamic now than there ever used to be. Like when we first, I don't even remember like 10, 15 years ago, what you're really worried about was make sure your electrical's right, your capacity is within the the constraints of 90.1 or whatever those outside air
Well,
and
okay, we need
requirements
to
and all that.
let's talk about 90.1 in a second. But
Yep.
all right, I'm just going to say we're going to come back to that.
Yep. And then
because, yeah.
electrical requirements, all that. Nowadays, I mean, we have to factor in. There's a fluctuation of lead times, pricing. If it's a price sensitive job, we have to help navigate that for the customer because they may not understand that if you go from one piece of equipment to another, that the price difference, what it could be. But we can also give the value to to what level do you want, what type of project is it, and how soon do you need it. Both Chad and I, we both got our MBAs as part of this process too. So there's that
Okay.
financial side of things, management side of things that kind of circling back to, kind of you get to exercise those if you enjoy that
Ooh,
side
here's
of
a
the
good
business.
question then, since both of you got your MBA. This is a common question. Students are like, I'm thinking of getting a master's.
Mhm.
Do I get an engineering master's or do I get an MBA? My experience and default is always to tell them, even though I did not do this myself, I got an engineering master's, but usually I recommend to students get your MBA. My advice is that you would rarely, I almost said never, but I think you would rarely ever regret taking business classes as an engineer. I always
I
think
think that's fair.
Is
yeah.
that fair? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you guys both got your
I
MBA.
guess
What do you
it
think?
depends if you want to be the pipe hanger guy. If you want to be the pipe hanger guy, you probably got to get a
Okay,
master's.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
I mean,
yeah.
If you want to get into into the business side of things where you're managing, there's financials involved. I would highly recommend any accounting structure that So if you ever want to be in ownership someday, that type of thing, or if you want to be part of management of a larger corporation, I would definitely recommend the MBA. If you want to get highly technical, like you want to design that widget and you want to be the best at it, or you want to teach or anything like that. I mean, both paths are.
Yeah.
They can't fault
Oh,
either
actually,
way,
for
right?
teaching, they didn't care.
Oh, they didn't care.
No, they didn't care. They were like, it was one of those things where, the only reason I'm here is they were desperate. I mean, they were really having a hard time finding someone to teach the mechanical construction classes. So our alumni, this goes back, early 2000s. Our alumni, we did not have an in-house mechanical or electrical class. All right. Do you guys know Jenny Baker? She's a consultant in the Des Moines area for a long time. She's now our electrical instructor.
Okay.
But anyway, both of us were consulting together at the former KJWW Engineering. Anyway, so I'm there, and one of my former professors, I see at like a Boy Scout event, and they were looking for someone to teach the mechanical classes, because what had happened since I graduated is that the feedback from our alumni is that we're graduating builders, general contractors, or even mechanical contractors, but really the building contractors that know nothing about mechanical and electrical systems. And those are such massive parts of their contract and such complicated parts of the building that they wanted better instruction, because what was happening is our building emphasis students that are going to be general contractors had to take one class in the ME department. You can imagine how well that went. Yeah. I mean, the problem was it was supposed to be a mechanical systems. Well, the ME department didn't want, and I don't blame them. They didn't want to teach it. So they'd put some poor grad student or someone working on their PhD to teach it that knew nothing about buildings. And so they'd turn it into a thermodynamics class, which helped not at all.
Yep.
So they're like, all right, this is what we want done. So they start teaching this mechanical class, and then they don't have anybody to teach it. And so, I was telling them, I'm like, well, you need to get somebody, this and that. I mean, if we're ever going to have more mechanical emphasis students in the program, you got to have somebody to champion it. And he's literally like, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm working, and he's like, well, do you ever think of teaching? So one thing leads to another, and that's a whole long conversation. But I ended up teaching, and I teach for the first. I had a PE license, but no master's degree. And they're like, yeah, you don't need it. Well, you got
experience.
You got experience and a professional engineering license in the area we needed. So we can waive all that good stuff. I'm like, oh, awesome. Cool.
What's another example of finding your way?
Yeah.
It's so hard when you go into college knowing what direction you're going to go. And it's really hard because you don't get to see what's all out there necessarily either, right?
All
And
the
internships
possibilities.
and
Oh God,
those
that's
are
the best
all
part of
really good
internships.
opportunities to really get out and see what's out there and find your way. So you did the same thing.
Yeah, I
it
did the
sounds
same
like,
thing. I was not planning on this particular job detour at all. So anyway, so I teach for a few years, and then they, during one of my annual reviews, because by that point they started me off as just like part time, and then they moved me up, and department chair comes to me and says, "Hey, Brad, really be a good thing if you had a master's degree." And I'm like, "Why?" I'm like, I don't need it. He goes, "Well, they'd really, we'd really like you to have at least a master's degree, and I'm like, fine, and so I considered an MBA, but my problem was time intensive, and while I'm teaching, it's like, that ain't gonna work. I mean, that's what I kind of wanted to do, but
So we both did ours after hours. I think you got yours at University of Iowa.
University of Iowa.
I got mine I was in Omaha, so I got mine at Creighton.
yeah,
Our previous employer paid for most of it as well, so it was like financially it made sense.
that does make sense, but let's be honest, that sucks, doesn't it? I mean,
It was before kids. You were
see, this was prior kids for me.
Yeah.
So I'm working, I'm doing consulting on the side, I'm coaching soccer and everything else, and trying to get a master's degree. That was just a disaster.
So I think the chicken and the egg with it is like, when do you do it? Like, because I see a lot of kids doing it right out of college.
But you have no context.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And then even I did mine 3 years out of college, and it was a great experience, but you just don't have the business experience at that point to really apply it.
Well, you want to apply it. That's the big thing. If you have the opportunity to use it on a daily basis and bring, so one of my favorite things was to bring situations from work back to the professor.
Back to the classroom.
Back to the classroom and work through those.
It's kind of like double E, by the way. I'd like to go back and take double E 201 and 202 again, or 221, 222. I can't remember what the numbers are.
Oh no, I know. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Because when I was in college, I had
no context.
how do you apply this? Now,
Actually, it was easier for me though, the double E classes that I had to take, because I was actually on nuclear submarine. I was an electronics technician, reactor operator.
Yeah.
So I had context, but not just with electronics, but also with pumps and pipes and all these things. So that made it a whole lot easier, I think, for me, because I did have a lot of good engineering context that most of my peers, well, almost none of my peers had.
Yep.
So what was the longest duration you were ever underwater?
Huh? Not long at all, because mine was under repair.
Oh, really?
Well, you have to understand, a nuclear refueling takes 5 years.
Ah.
All right, in the 90s, and the ship I was on wasn't meant to be refueled. It wasn't a warship. It was a nuclear powered deep submersible. It's kind of a weird thing, right? You probably, hold on a second here. I can pull this up since you asked, because this won't make any sense to me just describing it. All right, here, all right, I got some images here of my freaky little ship. Okay. Submarine NR1, the world's only nuclear-powered deep submersible. It's kind of hard to tell. It's kind of hard to get context. All right, let's go to the Wikipedia on this bad boy, right? It ain't big.
I was going to say, it's pretty small.
That is small. It is only, let me think here. Oh, it has been some 35 years since I've been on it, so I don't remember very well, but I think it's only about 11 feet wide, right? It is nuclear powered, smallest nuclear reactor you'll ever see. The sail is only about 6 feet high. And let's see here. Its mission was very weird. Its whole purpose was to do underwater exploration, mapping, stuff like that. Hold on a second. Let's see. There it is. It's got lights. It's got windows. It's got tires on it. All right. It's got a bunch of other stuff that may or may not be there depending on which book you read. Right?
Kind of getting claustrophobic just looking at it.
What's that? Just looking at it?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. Yeah, even other guys from submarines get claustrophobic when they look at it. I remember I got a tour of an actual fast attack. I remember looking around, and the guy giving me the tour is like, "Oh, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Wow, this is so big," And he's like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, well, I'm on this other thing across the shipyard. And they're like, oh, that thing.
Yeah, that can
yeah,
over there.
Yeah, the little tin can there that doesn't even have torpedoes on it. They're like, that's not a real submarine. I'm like, I think it is. I'm like, I think my submarine could be below yours, and we could be looking out the windows and not even be rigged for deep submergence yet, while you're at test depth. So anyway, so yeah, I mean it's a little bit of an oddball there.
Sure.
It's definitely not for everyone. That's a fact. Okay, I think part of it is in a museum now. There we go. There's a artist rendition of what it was supposed to do, like surveying the bottom and picking stuff off the bottom and doing all this stuff.
So 5 years to refuel, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be refueled. All right. So what they had to do is the part that you don't see, you see that image, and the back half of it where they're not showing you the inside, that's all engineering spaces. And at the very back part is the actual nuclear, reactor vessel. And it was only about as big as, I don't know, like as big as a large garbage can, but it wasn't meant to be refueled, so they made no provisions for refueling it. So they had to basically cut it apart, and it was a mess. It was a mess. It took a long time. So I was never underway on this ship.
Okay.
So I was only on it. I get done with training. They send me to this ship a year later. So I'd been like 3 years into my enlistment. And the chief engineer for this ship, who's a great guy, just a great human. Anyway, he nominated me for an officer program. So I got picked up and sent back here to Iowa State. So the whole time I was there, it was just getting repaired. So I don't have any cool stories about going underway and that type of thing on it.
If it is in a museum, you should go see it then.
What's that?
You said part of it might be in a museum.
It might
That'd
be
kind of cool, though.
It was okay. Well, here, hold on. I did take my kids though. I did take my boys to a museum. Hold on a second. When we were in, let me think here. What is at Portsmouth, New Hampshire? There is a submarine there called the Albacore. All right, there it is. Hold on a second. It is permanently staged, not too far. Right, this is the USS Albacore. Right, it is permanently staged not too far from the shipyard that I was in. It is now a museum, and you can get a tour on it. This thing was the last diesel submarine made before the nuclear revolution of submarines. In the United States, I should say, in the United States. All right, here's a little kind of a drawing of the interior spaces. The point of it was they were testing this new shape for submarines, because before this, you ever watch a World War II submarine movie, they're like shaped like a V, like a ship. In other words, it's meant to ride on the surface and temporarily submerge. Mm-hmm. So they shape it like a regular ship. This was the first one shaped like a dolphin or a porpoise, so that it's meant to stay underwater and then temporarily surface. Okay, so without testing this shape on a nuclear vessel, they put a diesel engine in it, and this is a diesel one. So anyway, that's permanently stationed there, right? Let me see here. Let me see if there's any.
See that space for battery cells? It says 250 battery cells. Wonder how much smaller that'd be today.
I don't know. Right now, this is a diesel, so probably considerably smaller. However, hold on a second. Let's go to, here's some of the interior spaces. There's the chow hall. Let's see here. The galley. Some of the interior spaces of it. It was a fun tour. We had a good time. right? A fun fact about a ship's battery is that it is the most dangerous thing on the ship, more so than the nuclear weapons. Usually, a ship's battery has enough stored energy to blow it like a mile out of the water.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true. That was just what you were told when you were going through.
So don't mess up, right? That's what they
Right,
tell you.
yeah, because all the worst accident reports are ones from guys in the battery compartment. You know, like getting vaporized or dropping a wrench or something across battery terminals. Bad. Anyway, so we're doing this tour, you know, and my boys are like, they're looking around the ship and they're like, oh my God, Dad, you volunteered for this stuff, you know, and you know, this is just a few years ago, you know, and I'm like, well, yeah. They're like, why would you volunteer for this? And I'm like, boys, in 1989, sub pay was an extra $100 a month.
Why would I not?
Yeah, exactly. How could I turn it down? You know, I was like, that's big money, fellas. And they're like, you know, they just give me this look like $100 a month. You're doing this for $100 a month. Extra, son, extra.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, it's a great pay incentive back then. It paid for my truck. What are you talking about? But anyway, so no, I wasn't out very, very long. I was never really out much at all. Only a couple of times on other ships. Even it wasn't even that one that I was on. So, but it's a very different path. No matter where you think you might be going, you know, just having to go from being in the military to finding a real, you know, like a civilian job, was quite a shock. You know, making that transition. And then that's where I kind of get interested in systems and thinking system-wide and that type of thing. All right. So yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have any other questions about my submarine past? You know?
We kind of took a detour.
Yeah, we did. We took quite the detour
it's
here. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not that cool.
Yeah.
It's not. It's funny. You know, the kids think it's like super high tech and stuff. And I'm like
from
boys,
a movie or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, boys, your Xbox has more computing power than that whole ship did. That is true statement. True statement. But anyway, no, it was fun taking them there. That's for sure. All right. So, okay, back to the subject at hand and you know, being that help for consulting and, you know, the consultant to the consultants. And that's what I would say is, all right, so tell me about what's expected. So you're doing engineering sales. And I mentioned this in my class, which none of them showed up for, and I'm sorry about that. But like I said, it's Friday, and the Connie bar crawl is here in a few hours, so they're probably occupied. But you know what I said to them is that you know, hey, we got these guys coming in for engineering sales. You need to learn it as an occupation. One of them jokes are like, you got to be good at golf and drinking, right? And I'm like, yes, and you know, you're selling technical stuff to technical people. It's not about the golf game. It's about, can you answer their questions? Can you do it in a timely manner? Can you back up what you're saying? And once you do sell it, were you right? You know, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that. Well, like what's expected?
I am proof that it doesn't take a good golf game. So
there we go. Okay,
I'm walking proof of that. But yeah. You know, Tim had mentioned the consultant to the consultant. The other analogy we always use is that, you know, an engineer has so many things to worry about when they're designing a building in terms of system-wide, right? And so they're the general practitioner, if you will. Yes. And then when it comes to actually, you know, all the equipment that we represent, none of it is like a widget off a shelf for the most part. Everything is what we call applied equipment. It's a manufacturer's design that gets applied to an engineer's specific design. And so we're kind of like the orthopedic surgeon, if you will, to the general
the specialist.
We're the specialist, And our job is to educate the engineer on options that fit, you know, what they're trying to accomplish. Us particularly, we're an independent manufacturer's rep, so we're independently owned. We have 70 plus manufacturers, so on any given project, we may have 3, 4, 5 manufacturers that can accomplish what they want to do. Mm-hmm. What's the best fit for that owner? And we kind of educate them on the pros and cons of each and start to head down a path. So
well, and with that too, like I think the stigma is that sales is like a used car salesman where you're selling features and trying to upsell, you know, the sealant on the seats or something, you know. What we actually do, though, is a lot of us we have engineering backgrounds, or they worked for a contractor, worked for the manufacturer, we're consulting engineers, and we use all that knowledge base on systems to help, fix a problem. And a good example is like we've got several manufacturers that do pool dehumidification units. We're not just putting a standard rooftop unit on a job and try to, right?
No.
Materials of construction, all that stuff that goes into it. We're, based on the size, outside air requirements, we have to know all those systems or those effects.
Well, and you better be right on it too.
Exactly.
Because that is a way to get blacklisted from like a whole consulting firm and all the projects they design. Is that if you're not, and I know this as being on the other side of it. If I was burned by listening to one of the vendor's reps on their equipment and they told me one thing and it didn't perform that way. Okay, one, shame on me for not doing my own due diligence. I get it, right? However, I will never be shamed again by the same
trust. There's a big trust
there is a
component there.
trust thing, and I'm looking at your product list, and what's funny is it has been here. I'm going to go. Do you mind if I show your product list on here? All right. Right. So I go down the product list, and what's funny is I'm looking at these, and I have literal experiences with so many of these. Like I have hard ingrained opinions, and I'm looking at like ABB and their drives, or big ass fans and their low velocity, high volume air circulators. I'm like, I got opinions on all of these. Dakin and their equipment, like I use in my class. Here, I'm going to switch this back. I have the students use design around Dakin. I let them use any, but I walk them through Dakin because I'm like, well, they got the best website.
Yeah.
I mean, when you need answers, you don't, especially at the student level, I'm wanting it to be as simple and as easy to find as possible. And I don't want them to have to go to a whole bunch of different choices. So I send them to Dakin because they've got a really wide range of choices, and it's pretty easy to find on their website. And they can get the engineering facts, the numbers that they need. And for the students, it's the same thing as you would in industry. It's like, well, what's its physical dimensions? What's its capacity? How much power is it pulling? Can I find these things easily and quickly? And can I create almost a cut sheet so that in my design notebook, I can say, okay, I need a 500-ton chiller, and I'm using this one. And here's cut sheet, because I'm going to be looking through those. It's like, did their design, did the piece of equipment that they selected, did it match the calculations that they just did? And do they have enough space in their building for it? That's how you create a realistic academic setup. And what I don't want them doing, which apparently you told me during the warm-up that they do, I don't want them calling the actual reps, but apparently that happens.
And that may have been friends of friends.
Well,
Friends of friends, yeah.
In their defense, I'm trying to remember the gentleman, but I think I met him at industry night last fall.
Oh, see, they do this.
Yeah, so it came out of a
so he's being proactive. So probably a good sales engineer.
Yeah, see,
that way, right?
And I'm okay with that. I'm like, if you've met him, okay,
Actually, I think it was. Did you work on was it the Dallas County admin building? Was that one of the projects you used?
Yes, we did last semester.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
So.
Yeah, that's funny. Right, that was for capstone, right?
Okay.
Yep. Well, so some of the capstone students, and I don't remember. So we're at MCA National Convention, and a couple of them, they had to get a humidifier, and they had to do dedicated outdoor air systems, and they had to do humidification, and they were like, I was like, okay, read this technical bulletin, and read this technical bulletin, and read this technical bulletin. I'm wanting them to self-teach, right? No, on the elevator, they meet one of the sales reps selling humidifiers like dry steam or
give me
somebody.
the download, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, and the salesman at convention, he's like, oh yeah, here, let me get you some stuff. How much, and they're like, well, how many pounds you need per hour and all this stuff. They're like, oh, I can get that. I could do that math.
Yep.
And they get it. It's just hilarious to me. I'm like, but that's the relationship that you have. Engineer needs to do enough math to know what they need to buy, and then you find the sales rep that's like, oh, okay, I know my equipment. Let me match that up to something that we could sell. Mm-hmm. So that's an important part of our industry that I don't think it's hard to simulate that in a classroom setting without annoying the crap out of our local sales reps.
Well, and I think some of them have done internships that we've
Oh,
we've
they
known
do.
at,
Oh, yeah,
at
the
some of
ones
our
with an
customers, so
internship,
they're reaching
yeah.
out and we're like, you know what, we can help, not a problem.
Okay. All right. Well,
I think another aspect that needs to be brought up is that our manufacturers depend on us to be their local sales force. What we've learned is, what they've learned over time is they're a big national company trying to sell into small markets or markets across the country.
Yeah.
They need a trustful, somebody they can trust as a
Locally?
partner locally.
ooh, you want a long ago story about lack of trust, or rather watched a relationship fall apart between? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here I am, a consulting engineer.
Do we need
and
popcorn for this?
What's
or-
that?
do we
Oh,
need, like,
it's
popcorn for
pretty
this?
good, but I don't know if we need popcorn.
Oh, okay.
Right. So local. I'm designing for one of the West Des Moines schools projects, and and our normal specification goes out with drawings and everything, and for fans, let's just use fans. This was not Cook fans. You guys rep Cook, right?
We're actually Green Heck.
Oh,
now.
Green Heck. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm
So
sorry. I
This
had
is
that
fairly
wrong.
new though.
So that's as of May 16th.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, wait, you don't.
Coming
okay.
up.
Oh, okay. Okay. Green Heck.
It's
All
in the process.
It's not why we were here today, but
Okay,
ti-
all right.
timely announcement.
Timely announcement. Hey, Green Heck. Well, okay, so Green Heck, Cook, and some others I won't name. But anyway, I always designed around, like, my personal preference was either if I could find it in Cook or Green Heck, I would use them. And so I designed, all the exhaust fans for this one particular large project, and neither Green Heck nor Cook, the contractor that got it used a different one from a different sales rep in town, and they submit. So here comes. You got to understand, for an engineer, by the time there's shop drawings, your mind is like 2 or 3 projects down the road.
Yep.
Mhm.
And you're like, I don't really want to mess with these shop drawings. I don't have an intern either to check them. Darn it. So you go through, and I remember for the shop drawing was just terrible that they had pulled together. I mean, I was just like, revise. There's so much just wrong, and on one of these, the actual physical dimension just wouldn't even fit. I'm like, rejected. By the time I got to that, I was like so frustrated. I'm like, rejected. Send it back. And they mark it up and send it to me again. And I'm like, this is still wrong. And the physical size still doesn't work. Rejected. Send it back. We do this after I can't remember if it was approved on the 4th time or I rejected it 4 times. It was one of the two. So 3 or 4 times I'd rejected it. And I was getting pretty frustrated. And then finally, the local sales rep calls me up and he's like, hey, Brad, we need to talk about this. You keep rejecting our stuff. I was like, yeah, it's wrong. I'm like, this fan doesn't fit within the space, and I'm like, and there's all these other mistakes too. And I'm like, I'm just, you're just wasting my time. Anyway, and he's like, well, no one does what you specified, right? What he meant was nothing he sold did what I specified, but what I designed around did, and I'm like, okay, here's the deal, and I'm like, here's what I designed around. This one fits. All right. I know it fits. And then, and he goes, yeah, but I don't sell that one. I don't rep that particular company. I'm like, that's not my problem. He's like, well, you let us in your spec, you let particular vendor. I'm like, sure. Yeah. If you have something that would meet those criteria, yes, in general, we would allow your particular fan manufacturer to provide it. But I'm like, but that does not get you out of all the other specification requirements. We just went on this. And finally, said local sales rep buys the fan off of their website, has it delivered to the job site of the competitor.
Yeah.
And anyway, so then he brings one of the executives from that company. The whole idea was, I don't know what the idea was, but I remember what the idea was. I just didn't let that particular fan into any of my projects after that. Just done. And they're like, well, you've got to let us bid your work. These, like, no, I don't. He's like, well, this is public work. You have to. And I was like, no, I don't. I've got all these other vendors, and I'm just not allowing yours in. And actually that particular school district was like, fine. They were totally fine with not, You know, and I'm not saying I took that particular sales rep's line card and crossed out everything in the spec that they sold.
So what you're really speaking to
Yes.
in our terms is the power of basis of design.
Yes, yes.
We
Power basis of design.
We spend 80% of our time with engineers
Trying to be basis of design.
educating and making their lives easier,
Yes.
not harder.
Harder. And that was the issue. So when local sales rep brings executive from said fan company, right? They come, they're like, he goes, hey, so and so's in town. Let's sit down and talk about this. I'm like, sure, great, come over. So they came over, we're in the conference room, and he's trying to, for some reason, the fan company thought this was me biased against their fans. Gee, I wonder where they got that idea. And it wasn't the fans at all. It was the local sales reps' work or lack thereof in doing shop drawings.
Yep.
And so he was asking me the deal. I'm like, oh, here. I open up this folder. I have all the comments on all the shop drawings that I reviewed. I made copies. I was like, here, I want you to review these. This is what I am going through. And let me explain that we can't do this 4 times on everything that's submitted. So for me, it's easier if I don't specify your fans. He's like, thank you for your time. And he left. And I'm pretty sure they had some pretty uncomfortable conversations, and they're right back to the office.
That's you look at our industry, there's a lot of youth. And a lot of times when you find yourselves in those situations, it's someone who's just doesn't have a lot of time under their belt.
Oh, well, that wasn't the case on this one.
Oh, really?
I was the youngest guy in the room. Right? This was like 2003 or 4, I mean, hell, I was like, 31 or 2, but the sales rep was considerably, he'd been around long. You see, this is the thing that was frustrating me. He'd been around long enough to know.
Yeah.
This was just the way they did business, and it was shy.
Where you see people fail in what we do is when they look short term
Yes.
gain.
That's true in any.
And it's every. But it's a part. We look at it as a partnership,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to look over into, because a lot of us, we got a good big runway yet of 20 plus years. We want to work together the next 20 plus years together, hand it off to our next generation down to the people working underneath us that we're mentoring. And Iowa is a big, small town.
Oh, Lord, it is a small, strikingly small.
So you burn one person, that you're burning the whole area, right? So
You
got a saying about that, but I can't say it on air.
Well, yeah, you can. I mean, this is not for kids. You can say anything you want. Swear all you want. We're good. We're good. No, I understand what you're saying though, but it is. Here, this is something that I do highlight to my students, like in their sophomore level class. Like, most important thing whether you're talking about vendor, contractor, designer, your professional reputation is the most important thing. It is the most important thing. You will not outrun it.
And honestly, like, some of my best relationships have been born out of mistakes.
Yeah, well, you learn everything there is to know about people during mistakes.
Exactly.
You know,
So, take them, own them,
and own them, or
correct them,
or try to short people on the other end for your short term personal gain. That is
well, you're gonna.
Absolutely
the one
true.
thing that's true in what we do is there's gonna be mistakes and there's gonna be issues. It's how you respond to them.
Perfection is not this industry standard, and it can't be. Not for designing, not for people, contractors, not for those in sales. It's just not. So what do you do, right? Well, how do you respond to those mistakes? That is a very good point. And so building that professional reputation is such an important part of young engineer, contractor, salesperson's career, right?
Yeah.
It's the focal point, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for us, it's a company culture.
Yeah.
And as we bring people in, we make sure that they have similar values to the senior people in the organization, and that we all live by that culture of serving our customers, both in good and bad, right?
Yeah.
And helping resolve issues.
So you guys ever hire interns?
We do.
We do, yeah.
What would be if whether we're talking intern or someone fairly, because the whole point is, this is a potential career path for maybe students that might be watching this that haven't thought of it yet, what kind of characteristics do you see like the critical must-haves? And I mean, we could say any career, yeah, you're not going to do well without good ethics. Well, okay. That's like you're not going to do well without technical competence, but all right, give me like the must-haves to do, like to walk into your company and be successful.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be outgoing.
Okay.
I say that though. There's some people in our profession who aren't necessarily like these. I always say a lot of sales engineers are actually introverted extroverts, meaning I don't love to walk into a room of 50 people and just start glad handing and shaking hands and everything,
Yeah.
but I will.
Right.
I don't love to present in a group like that, but if I know that I'm presenting on something that those 50 people really value, I love it, right? And so, like, I think most people in our industry are, we're all engineers for the most part, so we have this introverted aspect of us, but we're a little more outgoing.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I think that definitely helps. As in sales, being a little bit more outgoing than perhaps the average engineer. Which,
Yep.
I mean, we have an electrical engineer here. I mean, that's a low bar. That's right. Just
What is it?
tease. Come on, we tease. It's okay. It's okay.
I was always told you can't spell geek without double E. I'm like, I appreciate that. I'll take it.
It is. See, okay, so
Yeah.
but you do have to have a little bit of outgoing. You're right. The best salesmen I've known over the career have enough of the outgoing part that they are fun to be around.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That they
Yeah.
are. Yeah,
They're
like you said,
personable.
I don't
Yeah.
need to be the life of the party. But at the same time, it's also good to have a rapport.
It helps if they're genuine, right? They're a real person.
There it is.
Like,
Yeah, genuine.
We get a lot of, like, when we interview people and their background, like my dad was he worked in a factory, a lot of farmer, like they got that hard work attitude.
Yeah.
And they come to it with, it's that desire to learn more and they want to grow. And it's the people that want to show up in, 8:30 to 4:30 every day, punch a ticket and leave. I mean, that's probably not a good fit for us, to be honest.
Yeah.
We're looking for that.
No, I get that because I know as an engineer I've called like right before 5. It's like, oh, hey, what you got for this?
And sometimes the
behind.
smartest, highest GPA, maybe they're not a good fit because of that. They just think differently than the way we do. We like the technical. You need a highly technical background.
Okay.
I think that gets I think that that mentality of I just go golf and drink.
Yeah,
that's not
not gonna
correct,
work.
right? It's a professional sales position. But that eagerness to learn is huge. Like, because there's gonna be a lot of times where you're gonna be thrown into situations where you're not gonna have somebody there to help you, and you need to be able to pick up the book and try to learn yourself and realize that you don't need to know everything, but you need to get back to them quickly on how fast, and know where to find answers.
No way. It's almost as if you're saying an important characteristic would be for self-teaching and figuring it out.
Correct.
No way. No way.
Yeah.
My students will be so shocked to hear that.
Yeah, our
I
manufacturers.
wish some of them were here right now, actually.
Our manufacturers appreciate it when we do our diligence before
a call.
before the phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all know nobody likes to be the no one likes to be Google.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe you should have looked this up. I know I don't. It's so funny. There's so many times, a student might ask me a question, and I'm like, there's this awesome thing that you could use. I found it the other day. It's Google.
And now
questions like,
ChatGPT.
questions like basic stuff that I would just have to Google, like, hey, when's the drop deadline? Or when's the registration open for next semester?
Yeah.
Do what I would do. Look it up.
Yeah.
I don't have those things memorized. Okay, so you got to have fair technical skills, but the ability to figure stuff out is key. Okay, competitiveness. All right.
Sales is sales, right? Your compensation's a function of how much you sell. It's a true statement, but that's not why everyone does it. Most people in our organization are just very, very competitive and don't like to lose. And
they like to work as a team to all build, all win together.
Yep.
I guess is probably the best way to put that.
But people that like to serve other people is like probably the most fundamental quality. I mean, if you're in it to help other people, it pays itself forward.
Yeah,
time
the
again.
sales part will figure itself out.
Well, and Chad, what is like one of the things we want to do during interviews? We'd like to go to a grocery store parking lot, and we always say this joke internally.
Yeah.
And you just put some carts out there. And
See who puts them away.
and see who puts them away. And it's a true statement. There's so many and if you're not there to help support people, then you're not going to be successful in what we do.
I had one client, like talking about boilers, which I don't. Do you guys even have a boiler
No.
rep?
Fulton.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, there's one client that said to me one time, I was talking, equipment they preferred and didn't prefer, and system types, and subject to boiler came up, and he goes, "You can specify any boiler you want so long as such and such sells it." One of the local, supply houses.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, and I had a lot of experience with them, and they're very good at getting answers back and, serving the engineer. I'm like, okay, mind if I ask why? He goes, because if I call them up on Christmas Eve at midnight and I need a part for one of my schools that's about to freeze, they'll have a part to me that night. So he goes, I don't care what they're selling. He literally, like, as far as individual brand, he was like, I don't care if they sell it, I'll buy it. It's like, good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
As a consulting engineer, what do you sell?
My opinion
In time.
and time. That's
Right.
it. Time and opinion.
So the quicker that we respond with accurate information,
Accurate information. Yeah.
allows you to be more efficient
Yes, it
with
does.
your billable hours, which makes your job more profitable, right?
It does. It does.
So-
Well, look at what I did for my class. I used Dakin because they had the best website.
Yeah.
How do I know that? Going into teaching,
the best selection tools help. Like a lot of times, that final stuff you're putting on the plans are at midnight because you have a deadline at 8 o'clock the next morning, or they're texting or emailing or calling. We're working at night all the time, where it's, and we may be golfing that afternoon with customers, kind of some professional organization or something. But then you're making those hours up at night. We go on vacations. We're working in the mornings and stuff with that, and it just comes with the territory, and that's how we enjoy it, because we like to be able to help people through their issues.
And probably I can definitely see where the competitive side is good for pushing you along.
One of the other things I wanted to say is that, like, I think sales in general sometimes can get a bad stigma from engineers because they think of like a copier salesperson, right? It's very transactional, calling people, and getting hung up on and all that. Our customer base, both from a consulting engineering standpoint and contracting standpoint, is very finite. I mean, you may have a new mechanical contractor or engineer that enters the marketplace every 3 to 5 years or something. So you're rarely calling on someone that doesn't know you, or at minimum the organization, right? And so over the course of time, these people become like very, very good friends.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like you're ingrained in their organization as if your paycheck has their name on it.
Well,
right?
just look at chillers in Iowa. Like when I was designing, and things may have changed, right? But literally, I always thought of it as a 3-vendor proposition to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was either Trane, it was either McQuay, now Dakin, or York.
Mm-hmm.
Because Carrier really didn't have, from 2000 to 2005 anyway, did Carrier even have Des Moines representation?
I think they were probably handling it out of Kansas City,
exactly.
Or Omaha.
And you know what? That's why I never called them.
Yeah.
I never called them. I wouldn't see those guys at ASHRAE or anywhere. I wouldn't just run into them. They wouldn't be local so that they could come out and look at something. Knowing that, it made me think I'm only interested in the ones. And Carrier, I mean, Willis Carrier founded refrigeration cycle, and yet I didn't consider them a reasonable option for those years. Now, like I said, I've been out of the consulting world for almost 20 years now. Mm-hmm. Okay. So things are probably different. I don't know. But at that time, I was like, okay, I got 3 choices. I got this project. I'm going to talk to those 3 sales reps, see who's got the best fit for what I want. Once again, it's a race. Like I call each of them, let's just say I called each of them Monday. All right, and whichever one gets back to me first with good answers, I'm probably going to design around.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, or if not, it's probably because I have previous experience with one of their machines and I know it would work. So yeah, it's too small of a world.
And something else to share with, even if you're not going to get into sales and you're going to be a consulting engineer someday, I would recommend that you find partners that you can trust like that. Like,
Yeah.
go out and reach out. This whole like vendor relationship, I think if you can get a partner that you can trust, they can help. They can teach you. They can do all, you do fun things together, but they can also help keep you out of trouble. And it's important to reach out to those people and find them in your market, because that can be really beneficial to making your project successful.
I would wholeheartedly agree, because owner's going to come with some weird problem, issue, whatever it is that they're looking for an engineer to solve.
Yep.
Well, the worst thing you can do is buy your piece of equipment and use it in a way it wasn't really meant to be used.
Yep.
That just makes you look terrible.
And from a consulting engineer standpoint, to make that phone call to us costs $0.
Yes.
So it costs you nothing to get an educated opinion or a factory opinion or whatever. So
yeah, I would agree.
Yep.
All right. Well, other things, anything else on? Okay, so let's say that one of my students is a senior and they're watching this and they're thinking about it as a career. Talk to me about what you like about the career.
From my standpoint,
you could have been a consultant. You could have stayed.
I like the diversity of my day. Every day is different. I get to see a lot of challenges. So one of the challenges of my previous job is I had one product that I could sell, and it was usually flat specified in certain facilities, right? So it was a grind of trying to get into new facilities. From our standpoint as a manufacturer's rep, we have 70-some products. So we may not get the chiller on the job, but there's a good opportunity we get the pumps or the cooling towers and everything that goes around with it. Growing up, I was big into sports. I'm a very competitive person in terms of just getting those juices flowing, the team approach. That I definitely get that on a daily basis. And then as you work up through it, you build relationships with the manufacturers in different parts of the country. When you go visit them at the factory with customers, it's fun to see their face. They want to go. They want to show what they do, right? They're really proud of what they do. So it's fun to do that side of things. And then as we work ourselves up into being owners, we get to help mentor people, and we get to see our goal as a company is to continue to build our portfolio to be the best for our salespeople. And we're continuing to do that. And it's fun to be part of those conversations, from my point of view, to sit down and, negotiate out and plead our case why we think we're the best at what we do. Same with when we're recruiting. I mean, we've had several interviews and stuff over the past how many months, and it's fun to sell our business to them. And the culture, it's very important. So I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just it's fun when the harder you work, the more successful you can be. I mean, that's in really any profession, but for me, it's the relationship piece and building strong friendships and helping them, physically seeing things built from our perspective. I mean, Tim, that was a great answer, Tim. It was probably better than I would have spit out, but. It's the competitive aspect of it is certainly a piece of it, and it's a good time. So.
All right. Well, hopefully we've given students a little something to think about, in terms of expanding their network. What do you think is the best way? So for a senior to go about doing this, because like I see Dakin at the engineering career fair. Right, I see Train at the engineering career fair, and company your size doesn't need, 100 interns, or like I just had one of the large general contractors in, and they were talking about looking for 1,000 interns for summer. You need like one. Yeah. So how would a student go about finding that one spot?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, reach out to us. I mean, Ames is 45 minutes away for us, so we're more than willing.
Well, and I even think so. If you're wherever you're local, where you want to live someday, we exist in every market. So
And multiples.
yeah, and I think all you have to do is search the big product lines and see who the players are.
Oh, that's a good point.
You know, and if you're in Iowa, obviously we'd be happy to talk through stuff as well. But I think what you do is find them and go talk to them and just say, hey, I'm interested in learning more. I don't know if you're a good fit or not. You know, like it doesn't hurt ever to just sit down and visit. A lot of times we'll just grab a coffee with somebody, you know, or even just lunch or something, just to kind of see who they are and get a little background on them, that type of thing. And just show the interest in it. You have to seek it out. It's kind of like sales, right? It's not just handed to you.
Right.
So that's a good sign. We've actually hired people that have been persistently like reaching out to say, hey, I want to do this, and it's like, well, this guy's going to be or gal's going to be successful because you know they got that drive. You can see it in them.
We had one guy walk through our front door.
Yeah.
We had a service technician walk through our front door once.
Yeah.
He goes, I want to work here.
And he did it a couple times.
Yeah.
And finally, the second time, I'm like, well, maybe we got to take this seriously, you know, and he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's
okay.
Yeah, so.
But
Awesome.
Tim is right. Like, I mean, we're 45 minutes away, so anyone at Iowa State has interest. We're more than happy to drive down here, have a coffee, have a beer. We do exist in every market and in multiples, like you said, and we have relationships with most of those companies.
And we can help point them that way too, as to who the players might be that you want to talk to. And the other thing to think about too is like it can be very intimidating to come into what we do because there is a learning curve. But training is top notch by the factories. We have programs like Daikin's. They're a good example of we actually have sent people through their GET program, it's called, and they go through all the different factories. They learn all the different pieces of equipment. They get highly technical, and we've invested in that in some of our employees to go do that. So. And I think the return on that is amazing from their point of view. I know Louis' most recent one that has done amazing job with that.
I mean, we certainly, you know, train at the local level as well. But we can't do it at the same acceleration that they can do when they attend those specific programs. But
all right.
Yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if they want to talk through the profession. We'd be happy.
We'll
to.
do.
Or if we wanted to present to a class or anything.
Well, yeah, no. You know what? Have you guys ever come up to talk to our MCA group?
MCA, I don't know if we've done MCA, but we've done your class. I think we've done your class in the past.
It's been a minute. It's been a while since you've done the class. But you know what might be, you know what I probably should have done? I probably should have done this last capstone, since it was kind of the capstone project was pretty challenging. They had to do like a sports facility, so it had really tight humidity control for the floors. They had to do a massive amount of outside air and, you know, dedicated outdoor air systems and steam, you know, like a steam humidifier, whole thing.
Yep.
Right. I probably should have had you guys come up on one of my scheduled lecture times and just talk about, all right, this is how you find the stuff you need.
Yep.
Maybe this next fall. Let me think about that.
Yeah, we'd be happy
right?
to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Let me see
Happy
what
to
the
help.
project is. Probably, I just warn you though, if you show up, I'm guaranteeing you're getting a phone call or two from a student looking for help.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know,
okay.
okay.
That's
All
why
right.
we're here.
If you guys
Yeah.
are okay with that, all
No,
right,
we're
maybe
absolutely fine with that.
We'll probably get that done. All right. Well, gentlemen, I absolutely thank you coming to the studio for a little bit, having a little bit of chat with me. Right.
Fun.
Appreciate the discussion.
We appreciate
Right.
the opportunity.
All right. I'll get this. I've got like right here. Like at the end of this semester, it's so funny. Everybody that's put off coming on this, we're all like you're like the third or fourth one this week. So I've got,
oh, really?
yeah, well, over summer, I don't have as many students, you know, and there's a lot less going on.
Yep.
So people are trying to, you know, like I just had the boxing team come in, you know, because they just did nationals, and before everybody, you know, classes out and everybody goes their separate ways, they want to have a discussion like this. So it might be a little bit, but I will definitely get you on the podcast. I'll let you know when. Okay.
Yeah, and we appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I think we're going to end there on that good note, and we will wrap up another section of Office Hours. Thank you very much for watching.